Senator Cassidy.
Thank you. Commissioner, thank you for being here. During your confirmation hearings, I asked if the IRS would consider having a third-party vendor to do your IT management. And at the time, I submitted for the record news reports going back to the 1980s where IRS has requested lots more money, and then a lot of news reports that said they have not accomplished what they attempted to do. It's like, Christmas. Every year, IRS wants more money for IT, and every year there's reports that it's delayed. So you had suggested an openness to the concept then. Has that been acted upon, analyzed, in any way encouraged?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at our IT strategy, I'm moving up my learning curve on where we are with our technology. And what I've learned is, look, there have been successes. And I'm very interested in those successes, and I can talk to you about them. Why am I so interested in these successes? Because what were the preconditions for those success? Why were we able to build and deploy a successful modernized e-file program? How did that happen? And then there are non-successes. There are areas where we set out to accomplish something, for example, to fully modernize the individual master file, and we've only made progress, but we haven't fully modernized it. And that's
how many years overdue?
You could look at different time frames, but it's years overdue in terms of being fully modernized. But there are elements of it that are modern.
So let me ask, just because I have other questions.
Please.
Has contracting with a third party, such as Department of Defense does, for some of these services, been part of the considerations?
Yes, and one of the things that I've also learned is that about 2/3 of our IT spend is on contractors, 1/3 on IRS employees. That doesn't mean that that's the right level.
Now, of course, contractors is separate from going to the cloud with...
I think, and you raised that during the confirmation hearing, and I'm absolutely pushing the team to look at cloud, service-oriented architectures like cloud as an alternative. And,
great.
Absolutely.
Don't mean to cut you off. I just got limited time.
No, I get you.
Okay, next. In 2020, the IRS made final regulations regarding guidance on the definition of medical care under Section 213D of the IRS Code. Essentially, that primary services, what primary services are and are not qualified medical expenses for the purposes of HSAs. And the final rules said that direct primary care are, quote, expenses for medical care under Section 213 of the Code, because these payments are for medical care. A health reimbursement arrangement provided by an employer generally may reimburse an employee for DPC arrangement payments. It's great. It works for businesses. But it stops short of saying the same thing for individuals. And the IRS still takes the position that DPC arrangements are insurance or some sort of health plan. So we have two separate treatments for a piece of, you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I totally see where you're going with it, and I think it's a really good question. It was not on my radar screen. It is now, and I want to get to the bottom of whether these things are insurance or not. I've started to have conversations. I understand there's a complication. I understand there's benefits to an interpretation that would not have it treated as insurance, and I want to get back to you on it.
I appreciate that. Secondly, we've had, my office has pushed, part of the reason for the backlog is that they have these services that kind of fill up your phone calls with automated services so that you have to go to them to get through.
Yes.
And you had a pilot program as to how to address that. How is the pilot program going, may I ask?
It worked, and part of it is that we were able to get the reporting time down to 4 minutes, or the waiting time down to 4 minutes.
Is that by taking out the automated calls?
It's part of that reason is
So is that pilot going to be expanded to the entirety of this? Because I was told it was a pilot. Has it now become?
Yeah, I don't know that I can say we're gonna continue to leverage that type of solution to make sure that we are preventing that practice, because that's not a fair practice.
Yeah, it seemed like
we had success, which is the bottom line, and you always want to replicate that success. So we're very interested in figuring out why it went right and how to scale it.
Sounds great. You're filing, one, the private sector is obviously filing returns for people, but do you perceive a conflict of interest where the IRS, which is going to tax people, is also helping them to fill out their forms? The interpretation which an independent filer may take on their behalf might then be taken in a different way?
Yeah, it's an important question. I think it's a policy question, actually. What I want to do is answer the question is like, what are the operational implications of a direct file program? The idea that the IRS would be more involved in tax preparation through a direct file. I mean, I think other countries do it. It's a debate. I don't want to weigh in on the debate. I want you and the Treasury Department and the President to decide, and then we'll figure out how to administer it.
Thank you for great answers. I yield.